Hey everybody, welcome back. It's have you heard have you heard of this game? We've done that too many times before. Okay, we gotta do something, dude. Leamington. No, we can't. We have to. We must. You know, let's do some Apollyon. I understand. Tainted Apollyon has taken me longer to get used to than I would like to admit. Because I have an incredible amount of greed, and this greed, really manifested as regular Apollyon to begin with, but as Tainted Apollyon in particular. If an item is like not A tier or above in my mind, and even that can be flexible, like the sentries in Dark Souls 2. Top 20 Souls boss, don't at me. They're not flexible sentries, they're flexile, but I don't know what flexible and flexile, I don't know what the difference is between the two words, quite honestly. Either way. When I said top 20 boss fight, by the way, what I meant is top 200, but let's not worry about that too much right now. I just have a predilection towards always thinking that, like, are you familiar with the concept of diminishing returns? That's when, you know, every extra unit of something you add gives you less utility than the units that preceded it. A good example would be like, you know, Doritos. I know you thought I was going to take this in an economic direction. That's not the case. I'm more of a corn chip guy today. The first Dorito is the most delicious. I will say the next most delicious Dorito is the one that you think is going to be the last before you inevitably go in for one last handful. Repeat ad nauseum until the bag is empty. Every subsequent Dorito has less utility to you than the Dorito that came before it. Even though it's the same amount of calories, I personally would posit that the enjoyment you get out of every subsequent Dorito is less than the first Dorito. I might even go a step further and say that the actual Dorito that gives you the most utility in terms of the enjoyment is the zeroth Dorito. The Dorito that you have not yet eaten, but know that you will eat. Because you know that you have the future yield of the flavor of the Dorito. And how delicious can that be? But also you get the added benefit, the joy, shall I say, if I'm, you know, that's a take for sure. If I may be so bold, the joy of knowing you're gonna eat a Dorito and having that anticipatory sort of reaction. I'm actually stupid. Because, like, I looked at this and went, by the way, we will... oh, we've already done! Oh, Pat, thank you! Previous me! Because I saw the opportunity to possibly get a secret room in addition to, 3 coins, and I said, no, that's stupid. Then I saw a foolish rock, fool's gold, and I said, oh yeah, it's all coming together. But I think there's some truth to that, and I think that, you know... There's life lessons to be learned there. Like, I've been listening to a lot of podcasts, and I wouldn't be the guy who's like, you know... I mean, let me put it this way. When I listen to podcasts, I try to listen to podcasts that are relevant to my interests. A lot of them have to do... like, I've been really going down this rabbit hole of, like, behavioral economics and stuff like that, which I know a lot of people will roll their eyes at, but it's less like finance and much more about, like, the psychology of human decision making. You know, the stuff like I've been reading. Well, I read Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman, which is just like a fascinating book about you know, the individual shortcuts we use to try to make rational decisions, and whether or not those are actually based in any form of, like, you know, empirical analysis. And I've been reading this book by an economist called Dan Ariely, and the book is called Predictably Irrational, and it's a very, very similar sort of vibe. Let me think about this for a second. I think Sprinkler's good enough to hold. And one of the, you know, so I've been listening to podcasts related to stuff like that, and basically like a combination of, like, psychology and how that leads us to make decisions that we make as human beings. Whether that's, you know, with work or leisure, how you spend your money, where you save your money, etc., etc. And I'm not saying that makes me an expert in being the guy who, like, watches one video on, you know, like, astrophysics and is like, have you guys heard of this thing? It's called black body radiation. It's crazy, dude. Like, you can observe either the position of something or you can observe its velocity, but you can't observe both simultaneously. It's called the Breaking Bad uncertainty principle. But they were talking about how, like, they've done studies and people actually, and this is I wish I knew the context better, quite frankly, because now I'm that guy who's like, they've done studies. Excuse me, you dare suggest that I don't know about the studies? But it was about, like, the psychology of vacations, and it was like the first one thing that, like, so many people want to do in their lives is take a vacation around the world. Their advice, based on the surveys that they had given people, is that, like, you know, the first time you go on a vacation like that, you consider it life-changing. It's one of the most important experiences of your entire life. And then every subsequent time, you get a diminished amount of joy just because, like, the novelty isn't there anymore. And this is, like, you can say, like, you're built different, and you might be, you know, like, human behavior is, I guess, on a spectrum. I'm gonna keep playing this for a second. There's a lot of potentially good stuff going on here. This run is great to begin with. I am gonna try this, and I have no regrets. Come on. Don't do me like this. I was in the middle of a pseudo-intellectual rant. Devil card. I'm gonna leave and be smart. Then I think I'm gonna buy the potato peeler and just turn it into a fly. Unless we could maybe buy a bomb first. Let me see. No. Okay. I will buy the potato peeler. I will turn you into a fly. I don't mind. 15 cents to add one more fly to the equation. Might not be that worth it, but I feel okay. And now we're holding the potato peeler, so I'm gonna go back. Anyway, the long and short of it was... I sucked up the sprinkler. I'm embarrassed how long it took me to diagnose what happened there, but let's just move on and pretend that didn't happen. It's early. Oh, it's so... you can't make fun of me. I have a kid. You can't make fun of me. I have the cheat code. You can't make fun of me. Anyway. Basically, what this scientist said when he was a guest on the podcast was, my advice for you if you exclusively want to maximize happiness is that you should, like, if you get the means, enjoy taking one trip around the world and then plan for a second one and die immediately before you go. Because in general, you get a certain, like, utility out of, you know, anticipating a trip. It's like the same reason people buy lottery tickets is, you know, A, if you win, obviously, you're like, that's huge. But B, you also get to, like, feel in your head, you get that fantasy of imagining, like, oh, if I win, I can do this, this, and this. And even though that doesn't have, like, a material benefit for you, like, it doesn't actually manifest in, like, you know, you getting a fancy Ferrari or something like that, you get some enjoyment and thus some utility out of imagining it yourself, which is... I can understand for sure, like, I enjoy travel, I also enjoy being at home, but certainly, like, one of the best parts of travel is, like, the night before you leave, right? Or, like, when you know, like, next week, you're like, oh, this time next week we're gonna be in, you know, Tacoma or something like that, and you get some enjoyment out of that, I think. And to write that off, I mean, I don't know if I would necessarily say that, you know, I get more enjoyment out of the planning than out of the actual, you know, or out of the imagining than out of actually going. But, you know, I'm also not 65 years old, so, I mean, maybe my priorities will change as I get a little older, I don't know. Anyway, just kind of interesting. And that's how I feel about Doritos as well. That's why I'm going off on the Dorito thing, man. What kind of chip you got in there? A Dorito? You know what's ironic, dude? When Weird Al Yankovic wrote the parody of that song, a Dorito would be an insult. Now, I think if I gave you the opportunity to either have a Dorito or, like, a Pentium 2 processor from 1997, you would probably be like, bro, just give me the Dorito. At least I can get something out of it. Anyway. The anticipation of, and I think this is the corollary, it's less about Doritos, it's more about, like, meals in general. The anticipation, like, me thinking about what I'm gonna have for dinner is, like, 49% of the reason that I enjoy dinner. The 51 is the actual consumption of the food, and the 49 is like, oh man, there's so many options available. Maybe I could get, like, you know, a carne asada burrito. Or no, don't get the carne asada burrito. Maybe you could get a pesto quesadilla. No, let's not even go in that direction. What if we got sushi instead, you know? In a way, you get, like, an infinitesimal, like, snapshot of what it would be like to consume each different kind of food before you even get to consume it. Now, of course, the consumption is the real thing, so to speak, but you get a little utility out of it. I think that applies to a lot of stuff in life that we might not normally consider. I think it applies, I don't know, like, people might take some issue with this, because, you know, the gaming industry, like, here's the cycle, like, something amazing gets announced at E3, with a trailer that is a vertical slice and not representative of gameplay, and people go, like, immediately, they're like, this is the greatest game ever made. Even if I don't pre-order it, like, I'm gonna look up every piece of news. Look at the blast processing, you know? And then, as you get closer and closer to release and more, like, footage comes out, people go, it's been 2 years since the E3 reveal, and yet the footage that we're seeing of the real game is not at the level of the stuff that was revealed at E3 2022. Like, what's up with that? We have to take, man. I mean, we're treating this as if we don't have Abyss, but I think that's fine right now. And then there's, like, some denial in there. People are like, it doesn't come out for 6 weeks. They could still patch in, like, all that amazing stuff that you saw in the trailer that clearly doesn't exist in the game right now. And then when it comes out, you know, sometimes it comes out and it's good. Sometimes it comes out and it's bad. And sometimes it comes out and it's a complete freaking disaster. And people are like, I feel like betrayed. I think if you can refactor your mindset a little bit and recognize that, you know, following the release of the game and, like, the preamble and all that stuff is almost like part of the enjoyment as well. And then, you know, recognizing at that point, hey, I've already gotten 49% utility out of following the development of Cyberpunk 2021. Now I don't actually need to shell out the $80 Canadian to buy it. Now it's time for a big brain move. Anyway, just interesting to think about. I'm not saying I'm any kind of authority, and I'm sure I kind of botched it with you know, the secondhand. I mean, I'm not the person who did the research, so when I described it, I'm sure I described it in such a way that it reinforced the point, however humorous I was trying to make, instead of being as authentic to the science as possible. But just interesting. It is a Monday today. I had a good weekend this weekend. Again, I'm not gonna, you know, talk about it too much, but man, definitely changes things to have access to, like, 2 days instead of one, in a row especially. Like, it is a big improvement. Who would have thought, you know? That, you know, I mean, I guess the answer is everybody, but who would have thought that a 2-day weekend, pretty sick. Imagine the utility of a 3-day weekend. I don't know. Hold on, this is, how to jump can be worth something, but I'm still holding out hope that maybe, like, the potato peeler will crush it for us. We did get 2 flies out of this, by the way. Now, you might wonder about the flies, because we've previously gone alt path, and then only gotten 1 fly from 2 pedestals. I recently reached out to clarification to Dr. Chat, and Dr. Chat informed me, if you have a choice between 2 pedestals, i.e. if you took 1 pedestal and the other one would disappear, then you only get the 1 fly, because the yield of the room is only 1 fly. If you want to call me, maybe, that's what marry him, marry me, you're gonna marry him, or marry me, you don't marry me with the Christmas tree. I could be the man who puts a star on the tree. We almost hit like half of the notes there. That's a personal best for me. That's the power of a 2-day weekend. But yeah, in a library, you know, every single one of those pedestals is something that, in theory, if we could hold all these limes, we could take all those items out of there. So that would be a situation where we could have, you know, multiple flies generated proportional to the exact amount of item pedestals in the room. Anyway, what was I talking about? Oh, the weekend, yeah. I think like, let me tell you how my weekend went. I'm not I'm not anti 3-day weekend. I literally, like how, first off, I remember what it was like to work like a normal job. I would have, I mean, like, I've said I mean like 70 times. That's how you know you're potentially getting yourself into a little bit of trouble, I suppose. When I worked a normal job, and I'm sure that this is a situation that's, right, we already sucked that up. I'm sure this is a situation that's very relatable. You're going to think I'm going to have some bad YouTuber take where I'm going to be like, just work a little harder, lol, forehead. Not the case at all. Generally speaking, you know, I was in, except for teaching where you have to be there for like a set amount of time because you're basically like a glorified babysitter at the school that I worked at least. You know, when I worked a more kind of like conventional office job, you were there 35, 40 hours a week, no matter what. You probably had maybe 15 to 25 hours a week of work that was actually productive, and the rest of it was kind of just like, I'm not saying this applies to every role in the office or every workplace to begin with, but, you know, probably less than 75% of the time was actively contributing to the business, and the other, you know, 25 to sometimes 50 or 80% was just like, not even like trying to look busy. Like, I think that they've even gotten past that sometimes. More like just recognizing that you're not going to be busy all the time and instead just leaning into it, right? Like, just being like, yeah, it's kind of a slow day. So I certainly, like, when I worked more conventional jobs, I was like, I completely understand. Like, first off, if I could come to work at, like, if you just lopped Friday off of the work week, I would get the same amount done. I'm not gonna say I would get more done because there is less time in there, but it's this guy, by the way, just hits us. Just embrace it. I'm not going to say I would get more done. I think it's possible, but I don't know if I could back that up empirically. But I think there would be no problem getting at least the same amount. But even if you wanted to do like a 4-day work week and come in like a couple hours early, I'm like, dude, I would have been all in on that. I would have been all in on that. We're in a weird spot here, by the way. I don't want to use Abyss to suck up HP. First off, we need HP to live. Secondarily, wait, we have not done boss rush. This doesn't really feel like a boss rush run to me right now. It feels more like you just coasted maybe to a light side victory. So, I mean, apart from the obvious, like, benefits of a 4-day weekend, or a 3-day weekend, 4-day work week, I also think, like, at least in the roles that I've worked in, which is all I can really speak to, my productivity would not really have been affected at all, I think. No way to know unless you try, I guess. But here's the corollary there, is for me right now, I think a 3-day weekend every weekend would be a little too much. Because let me tell you how my weekend went. And it was great. I had a great time. Saturday, you know, and this, it reminded me of like being back in high school, right? Like on Saturday, I woke up early because, you know, the baby, and also because that's just, you know, what you do as you get older. And I was like, I have an unbelievable amount of time. Like it's 7:33 on a Saturday morning, and I have Sunday off as well. Delicious breakfast. Watched Kindergarten Cop. Why? Because it's Saturday, baby, and I ain't ever seen it before. Why not? 'Tis the season. What did I think of it? It's not that good, but watching it was a great time. Strange, right? Anyway, so on Saturday, like, I got a little work done. Like, I had to record one Isaac episode, and got a little, like, housework done, and then Kate and I went for, like, a really nice walk, and then we were like, hey, let's get some lunch, and we had, like kind of a pseudo picnic outside until the weather got slightly inhospitable. We went back inside, and like all through the day we were like handling the baby stuff as well. And I'm just like, I'm way more like there for the baby stuff too. Like, you know, when I have one day off, you're kind of intermingling that family time and free time. So I was like present, don't get me wrong, but also I wouldn't say I was eager to get out there and change the diapers. Now, I support this, by the way. This was smart, probably. Now, as soon as I hear the telltale sound of a fart, the beating of that telltale fart, I'm like, I'll get it, and I just spring up, and, you know, eventually we may reach a point, by the way, where, like, I get used to the fact that I got this, and we gotta readjust and recalibrate, but anyway, until then, it owns. So then I even played, like, a little MLB The Show, and then, basically, that was my Saturday. You know, pretty low-key, pretty easy. We're gonna suck up all of this. I'm sure compost won't work for us. This is how it's gotta be done. I guess we could keep compost, but then on Sunday, you know, I woke up, you know, fed the baby, just kind of milled about, and then Kate was nursing the baby, and I said, I'm bored of this video game. So I vacuumed the entire house, then I Swiffered the entire house, and then I went, oh, you know what? Like, I don't think I've ever cleaned our balcony, so I, like, went out with rags and like a bunch of water and like a garden hose and cleaned off like all the gunk that had gotten like attached to our balcony, and then I was like, well, it can't just clean like the gunk, you know, so I like took all the patio furniture out and then like hosed down the stone, and like I just reached a point where I created like so much busy work for myself. It's not a bad thing necessarily, but I think if I had a 3-day weekend, I would be like, I would go crazy. Basically what I'm saying, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's good to keep up on the house maintenance and stuff as well, but I definitely, like, understand, like, why... As a kid, you see people, like, mowing their lawn at 9 a.m. on a Sunday or something like that, and you're like, what the heck are you doing? As an adult, you're like, why the late start? You were able to stave off boredom for long enough. There's like an addiction to I don't even want to say an addiction to productivity, because I know that you know what kind of comments that leads to, but there's like a compelling need to feel useful, I think, to some extent, if that makes sense. And I managed to stave that off for, I don't know, about 30 hours, and then I was like, nah, dude, it's time to, you know, I almost got a duster out. I was almost like, let's start dusting this place. Anyway, I don't mean it to be a negative thing. Basically, like, it means I need a hobby, I think, is one of them. And I'm realizing that now, but it's like a good thing. When you work too much, not that I haven't had like hobbies over the years, but when you work too much, it's very easy to kind of be like, let's not do anything, because I'm busy. And now that I have, I'm not going to say ample free time, but let's call it like, you know, a normal amount of free time, I'm like, dude, I got to get into something. I got to, like, and I'm not asking for suggestions, for the record. Okay, but it was worth a try, maybe. I think it's good, like, feeling that pang of boredom, and realizing that, like, the right thing to do was probably not to just be like, oh yeah, just be bored on your recreational time. And, like, you know, even if you've played, you know, 3 hours of MLB The Show and you're not actively getting enjoyment, why don't you just keep playing it anyway, because it's your day off? Instead of just doing that, you know, leaning into the feeling of unpleasantness a little bit, and then being like, okay, you know what, that it's time to pursue something, like, maybe a little bit more, I don't know, fulfilling, I guess. It's not an anti-video game thing at all. Like, I played a lot of MLB The Show this weekend. I had a great time. You know, can I tell you as well? I kind of freed myself from a prison of my own creation. The default difficulty for the game, and I'm not going to get into the specifics, because many people watching this will not care, because it's about a sports video game. If they had swords, they'd be like, oh, really? What kind of alloy did you make your claymore out of? What kind of pommel did you put on it? Oh, you put that pommel on it? Don't you want attack speed? Lol, I remember when I didn't care about attack speed. Anyway, but because it's about sports, even though it has like an RPG equipment system, people are like, I don't... No, blunt bat that hits baseball, I sleep. Sharp bat that hits slime, ooh, let me go to the subreddit immediately. Anyway, so I apologize, I didn't mean to be so antagonistic, alright? I apologize, let's move on here. But the default difficulty is essentially dynamic. So the better you do, the harder the game gets. And I was getting frustrated with it because I would like do badly, and then the game would get easier, and then I would do well, and my reward was doing worse in the future because of the fact that I had the audacity to have done well in the past. And for a while I was like, I don't want to lower the difficulty, cuz like that'll be like, it's like I'm cheating myself, like I'm just getting free dopamine, right? Then I said, you know, the dynamic difficulty had placed me on Legend Plus, which is like the hardest batting difficulty in the game. I cranked it down to Hall of Fame, which is like just below that, and I'm having a great time now. I'm having a wonderful time. Okay, just hold on a second. We want Polaroid, which is here. Don't even question it. What do we got going on in here? Nobody knows. I mean, I'll take a stab on one of these. I don't mind a Demon Baby. This run can definitely win on its own right if we're just going down, like, the normal side here. But it's gonna, like, this is not a run that's built for, like, insane success right now. But I think as long as we keep our HP pretty high, there's no reason it couldn't, you know, beat the normal part of the game that we, you know, the Afterbirth Plus loop, let's call it. So yeah, I mean, I guess I kind of hit a moment where I was like, who am I trying to impress? That's the thing, like, I know I've talked about it before, like, it makes me cringe when, like pro Call of Duty players will, like, tweet and be like, skill-based matchmaking's ruining the game, I don't want to win 50% of my games, I want to, like, you know, win 99% of my games, because I have a financial interest in it when I'm streaming it. I'm like, yeah, well, you know, screw the other, like, everybody else playing the game. I know that's what I want when I spend, like, 60 bucks on Call of Duty, is to be, like, endlessly matched with, professional players who are farming me for, like, Twitch subscriptions. Yeah, that seems like a great use of my paycheck. That being said, bro, I'm sending it because I gotta know what this is. Soul of the Lost. Leave your body behind. Turn off the old mind. Relax and float downstream. I'm gonna try to use this. I don't know what it does, but I'm gonna try to use it on like a deal with the devil. Maybe it'll give us a free deal with the devil. Just trying to imagine what it could possibly be, being related to Tainted Lost. But anyway. But what I'm saying, perhaps it seems hypocritical, but what I'm saying is that, like, I don't want to win 50% of the time when I'm... Like, I don't want a level of challenge that's proportional to my level of ability. I want to... Because then it kind of... I'm spinning too much. Let me rephrase. In a single-player game, I don't want to win 50% of the time and lose 50% of the time. I don't want to get better at something and have my reward be beating harder... challenges with the exact frequency that I was beating them with when I was worse. I want to get better and have my reward be that I lose less often and thus get access to that forbidden neurotransmitter. You know what I mean? In a multiplayer game, you got to balance the happiness of everybody out there, right? So I think trying to balance it around 50-50, you know, wins and losses makes a lot of sense. But for like MLB The Show, I was like, you know, if you had a game where you hit like, you know, 3 hits out of 5 at bats, you would think like, oh man, that means I got more stat points and I can use those stat points to like make myself better in the future. It's like, nah, man, like the game is pretty much just destined to leave you, you know, in the position where you can hit somewhere between like 200 and 350 at all times. And I was like, that's stupid. So I just put the difficulty on like a flat level, and I'm watching my average climb, and I'm feeling great about it. You know, a video game at the end of the day, you know, for the vast majority of the people watching this, is just a toy to you know, create your own amusement. If you're not being amused, anytime you find yourself getting frustrated, I'm not gonna say your first inclination should be to turn the difficulty down. I think it depends on the situation. You know, if you're playing like a Souls game where part of the thrill is the difficulty, that's one thing. Here's also what I would say about Souls games, you know, New Game Plus notwithstanding. The better you get at a Souls game, the easier it becomes in the future. As opposed to like a dynamic difficulty or skill-based matchmaking game, where the better you get at something, the harder your competition becomes in the future. I'm not against that. Like, I think in multiplayer context, that's exactly what you want as the developer. As the gamer, no, you want to win as much as possible, I think, for most people, but myself included, to be fair. Such an insulting game, by the way, to never use Peeler. Like, I apologize, but it's the honest to goodness truth. This also lets us use illuminated bulb, which I'm pretty stoked by. I just briefly feel the need to interject here and like come to my own defense on this run, because I feel like this. Ooh, let's go. I feel like maybe you're watching this and you're like, this guy's making like the most boring choices of all time. Trust me, you know, if you haven't watched all the Tainted Apollyon episodes from YouTube and from streaming, like, this is better. I've had a lot of zany runs where I turned like absolutely every item into flies, and you know, there's not a lot zany about you know, in the moment when you do it, you're like ha 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 ha, and then you're going up against you know, the bloat, and it's 24 minutes into the run, you're on Necropolis 1, and you're like, I hate everything. So you gotta, you know, you gotta pick your battles, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I don't mind, like, losing the HP there from Brittle Bones. I'm happy to get the Tears upgrades, quite honestly. I didn't want to throw them away willy-nilly, because I don't know how much HP we're going to need to win this run. We haven't spent a lot of time going on this loop. I'm a little bit out of practice. I'm not worried about the enemies, I'm just out of practice, you know, for calibrating what's overkill for a win and what's, like, exactly appropriate. But anyway, I would never suggest that I don't understand. When Call of Duty players are like, you know, or Call of Duty pros in particular are like, I don't like the way skill-based matchmaking makes me feel. I'm like, yeah, I completely agree, obviously. That's why it's more fun to play chess in the Botez Bullet Tournament than it is to play, you know, on chess.com regularly. I'm not trying to become a professional chess player. I really don't care whether my elo is, you know, 1500, 2000, or 25, you know? I just want the maximum amount of dopamine. So if I could play more people with that have like a 700 elo as someone who was in like the 1500s, that's great for me, don't get me wrong. But what I've realized, I guess, is that, you know, there's a balance between, like, enjoyment and frustration, right? Or boredom and frustration is probably even a better way to describe it. You gotta love Soul of the Keeper, man. Like, look at this. Oh, my. And that's gonna help out with Luck Tooth. We got everything going on here. Like, I've definitely, when I was a kid, I would, like, no-life sports games. I would play, like, NHL, you know, 2003 or whatever. And I would just put it on pro difficulty, which, you know, perhaps counterintuitively is like one up from the lowest level. I would play, you know, an 82 game season over the course of a month or two and literally go 82-0, right? And if I ever like lost a game, I was like, I'm mad. But you reach a point where you're just bored. Like, the challenge no longer you're no longer engaged because, like, the risk of dying isn't there. So these items, by the way, not that good, but let's see if we can figure out what this does. I didn't do what I wanted it to do there, let's put it that way, but that's okay. At least now we know. And we have Vengeful Spirit, how about that? No, yeah, thank God. Vengeful Spirit. But I think I almost went in the other way as I got older, right? Like, you know, I think a great example is, like, Civilization. Like in Civ, when I've never been an insanely heavy Civ player, but there have been times in the past where I've gotten into it and played, you know, maybe 100 hours, 200 hours, which is basically like baby mode. But I would play on like the default difficulty, win, and then be like, that was fun, but I don't feel like I was actually challenged that much. Raise the difficulty a level or two, get freaking stomped, and be like, that wasn't fun at all. It's all about finding that balance, you know? And I think as I've gotten older, I've leaned more into like, oh, we have to do the most difficult things, even in a single-player context. Even if it makes me frustrated, and I do wonder, looking back, if that has undermined my enjoyment of some stuff. I think it's a level of personal growth, you know? Trying to recognize that, at the end of the day, these things are, like, designed to amuse. All things being equal, winning and being a little bored is probably mentally better for you than losing and being frustrated, but I guess there's also the other side of the coin would be like, you know, do you really want to spend your leisure time getting coddled? And I'm like, I don't know. It sounds kind of nice. I think normally I would be like, no, but now I'm like, whatever, you know. I pay my taxes. You know, tell me I'm special. Something like that. The sweet spot. I always think about games like XCOM. Because I think that the dream is that you end up, you know, like in XCOM, for example, the dream is that it creates moments where it looks like you're probably going to lose, and then you pull it out. That's when you're like, that's the sweet spot. When you don't think that it could possibly happen, and then it does. I always think back as well to like in terms of, I don't know if it's the best series I've ever made, but in terms of like, you know, underrated NL series that didn't hit that level of critical mass that I feel like maybe people missed out, that Frostpunk series I did had one of the best endings of all time. Like, everybody was like, there's absolutely no chance you're gonna live here. Your colony did pretty well for like a little bit, and then things got tough, and now it's totally screwed. And then we just, you know, spoilers, every episode we were like hanging by a razor's edge. It was like, you're probably gonna freeze, everybody's gonna freeze to death or leave, and you're gonna lose. And then instead, we just, you know, held it together. Possibly had one of those, like, you know, late game moments where you were seconds away from oblivion on a 10-hour campaign. And then it was like, miraculously, oh, I don't even know what we had there. I apologize. This is really good for the chest. But it was like, miraculously you lived, and I thought it was like, it was a great gaming moment for me. If it had been too easy, you know, you end up in a situation where you're like, why am I even playing this? Because, like, I'm just literally clicking, like, next turn, next turn, next turn until the game ends and I win easily. If it's too hard, you're like, I don't even, like, I don't feel like I have control over my own destiny here. But when it's right in that sweet spot, that's the best, man. I'm not necessarily advocating for, like, you know, making it so you win every time. But I think, like, 50%, I'm not cut out for that kind of... On my days off, I'm not cut out for that. Even, you might be like, what about an MLB The Show? No, I'm still bad. I'm batting, like, 320 in MLB The Show, which is, like, good. But it's not, like, ahistorical. You know, they wouldn't make you the best player of all time. Okay. So let's see what we got going on here. I would say you probably take Sad Onion. I mean, there's no reason you don't Soul of Isaac first, I guess, now that I think about it, but... and to be honest, I don't think there's a good reason not to, basically Abyss the other three. We'll just get Abyss charged up, and I definitely think, like... we could get some value out of that. This has been a nice, like, smooth... pretty gentle run. I would probably Abyss that too, so let's save it for now. I'm not sweating the tears or the brittle bone loss there. I mean, we could always take Yumheart in exchange for White Pony, just if we thought that would keep us alive, or might be necessary to do so. I guess being able to fly, I don't know. It's not as valuable here as it can be, but I think I'm just going to hit the button right off the bat. I'm going to eliminate the tension. I will say I'm kind of like, I don't know if proud is the right word, because I think the run has been fairly easy. But it's definitely scaled more slowly than the enemies have scaled. Like, we find ourselves... you know, on basically the same damage that we had when we got Pentagram on the first floor, so, I definitely do kind of look at this as, like, I think we let the items do the talking for us in the early game. Screen's a little busy, no doubt about that. We let the items do the talking for us in the early game, and then, you know, as they kind of fell off, you know, the flies are picking it up. One thing's for certain, I mean, you can't really go back in time and do this, but I do feel pretty good about our decision to not potato peel our HP away, because HP is looking pretty important here. Yeah, these guys just almost necessarily, like, die faster when there's less of them around and we can actually focus on one. Also, spend a lot less time dodging the less of them there are. That was... I mean, you absolutely take. There's no reason not to. We'll go back and abyss this fly, but now I'm like, you know, is that really that valuable when we were obviously probably going to win thanks to Mom's knife now anyway? Well, that's what I get for saying the run was tough. Now they go ahead and just make it insanely easy. Just when I thought you couldn't get any stupider, you go and do something like this and totally redeem yourself. That's good damage. I would say, like, I don't know, this might strike you as boring. I hope not. I thought the commentary was pretty on point. That's the value of a 2-day weekend. I had thoughts instead of just like, I gotta get live and play Insurmountable. But... oh, I forgot these guys existed. This might strike you as a little bit of like a more boring kind of Isaac run, just due to the fact that the character is not necessarily as high risk as something like Tainted Jacob, Tainted Lost, etc., etc. But actually, I don't know. I'm going to look back on this run with some fondness, I think. We played Isaac, you know? We didn't just play Dodge, and I love the Tainted characters that are, you know, more difficult, don't get me wrong. But I think this is a run where we had to, like, you know, the pilot of the ship made a huge difference in terms of the performance on this one. I had a great degree of agency over whether this would be a win or a loss, so the fact that it comes out and is going to be in the win column, almost certainly, it feels great. It feels very fulfilling. Happy with myself. A great inflated sense of self-worth. I suppose we should have abyssed that, but I wouldn't say I've been abyssing it, Bob. Delirium? No, maybe you can't even get it. I don't remember. Anyway, great run in terms of, like, unlocking stuff. Just very nicely done. For now, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, click the like button. Helps out a great deal. Of course, subscribe if you want to see more in the future. For now, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. By the way, twitch.tv/NorthernLion. I'm live every day. Twitch.tv/NorthernLion. See you then. Every day but Saturday and Sunday, of course.